In 2026, a small country does the impossible. They announce they're paying back billions of dollars in debt. Headlines celebrate. Markets cheer for a moment. And then nothing really changes. Prices stay high. Taxes don't go down. The country even borrows again the very next month. Why? Because the truth is uncomfortable. Some countries are not meant to ever finish paying off their debt, not because they're lazy or corrupt, but because of how modern debt actually works. This isn't a story about bad decisions. It's about a system that quietly moves the finish line every time someone gets close. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's start with the promise we're all taught to believe. Debt is temporary. You borrow, you grow, you pay it back. That logic works for people. It even works for businesses. But countries don't play by the same rules. By 2026, global government debt has passed levels that once triggered economic collapses. And yet, nothing collapses. That's the first clue. If this level of debt were truly unsustainable, the system would already be broken. Instead, debt has become stable, even desirable. So, how did we get here? To understand that, we need to go back to a simple idea. When a country borrows money, who is it really borrowing from? On paper, it looks like banks, investors, or other countries. But in reality, most modern government debt is tied to its own financial system. Pension funds, insurance companies, central banks. Your retirement account is often lending money to your government. So when politicians say, "We owe trillions," they rarely finish the sentence. We owe it mostly to ourselves. That sounds safe, and in some ways, it is. But that safety has a cost. Because once debt becomes embedded inside the financial system, paying it off stops being the goal. Managing it becomes the goal. In 2026, most governments don't ask, "How do we eliminate our debt?" They ask, "How do we keep it affordable?" That's a very different question. And here's where the math quietly changes. If a country's economy grows faster than its debt, the debt feels lighter over time, even if the total number gets bigger. So governments learned a trick. Don't kill the debt. Outrun Italiano. But growth isn't guaranteed. And when growth slows down, something else steps in. Inflation. Inflation is rarely framed as a debt tool, but that's exactly what it is. When prices rise, the real value of old debt falls. The government still owes the same number of dollars, but those dollars buy less. Inflation quietly transfers value away from savers and toward debtors. And the biggest debtor of all, fees, the state. By 2026, inflation, ISN, TN, accident. It's a pressure valve. Not always intentional, not always controlled, but deeply convenient. This leads us to the second uncomfortable truth. Paying back national debt in full would actually damage the system. Think about what would happen. Governments would need to run massive budget surpluses. That means higher taxes, lower spending, and less money flowing into the economy. That slows growth, which in turn makes the remaining debt even harder to manage. So instead, the debt stays. It gets rolled over, refinanced, and extended. Old debt is paid with new debt. This isn't a failure. It's a feature of the system. In 2026, many countries are not trapped in debt. They are maintaining it. There's a crucial difference. But wait, some countries still collapse under debt. Why? Because not all debt is created equal. Countries that borrow in their own currency have a massive advantage. They control the printing press. They can inflate the currency. They can extend repayment terms. They can restructure their debt quietly. Countries that have to borrow in someone else's currency, like the US dollar, don't have that option. If you owe dollars but earn your revenue in a different currency, you are completely exposed. Every global shock hits you harder. When interest rates rise in America, your debt payments can explode overnight. This is why some nations keep falling into debt crises while others seem to coast along. It's not about morality, it's about currency power. By 2026, the world is clearly split into two groups: countries with monetary sovereignty and countries without it. The first group can survive massive debt. The second group often cannot. And this is where the system becomes deeply political. International lenders don't just want repayment, they want stability. And stability often means control. They impose conditions, demand reforms, and enforce austerity, not to punish, but to protect the very system that holds all this debt together. From the outside, it looks cruel. From the inside, it looks necessary. This creates a quiet hierarchy. Some countries are allowed to carry practically infinite debt. Others must constantly prove their discipline. The game is not fair, and it was never designed to be. Here's the part that's rarely said out loud. If every country tried to pay back all its debt at once, the global economy would collapse. Debt is not just a liability on one balance sheet. It's an asset on someone else's. Your pension fund, your insurance policy, their stability depends on holding that government debt. Erase the debt, and you erase savings, pensions, and the foundation of financial stability. So the system preserves debt, even while politicians publicly promise to eliminate it. That contradiction isn't an accident. It's designed to keep voters calm and markets confident. By 2026, the biggest risk isn't default. It's the loss of trust. As long as people believe the system works, it does. The moment they stop believing, everything accelerates. That's why governments talk about responsibility while quietly extending time. That's why the numbers keep growing, but panic doesn't set in. Debt has become permanent infrastructure, like roads or power grids. You don't pay off a highway. You maintain it. And that brings us back to our original question. Why can some countries never pay it back? Because paying it back would break the very system that depends on it. The debt isn't a mistake. It's a pillar. The real question for 2026 isn't when the debt ends. It's who absorbs the cost of keeping it alive. Savers through inflation. Workers through stagnant wages. Future taxpayers. Or maybe no one at all if growth and inflation manage to quietly dilute it away. And that leads to the final, uncomfortable thought. If debt is permanent, then responsibility doesn't mean eliminating it. It means deciding who carries the burden. So the next time a country announces it's paying back billions, ask the better question. Who actually paid for it? And who quietly paid instead? Thanks for watching.